Well, welcome back to my channel. It's Deborah Robinson, aka Lily Rose, and I want to welcome you to my portico and my yard. This is where my dog and we play, and where, well, I sit here and have coffee a lot of mornings and, just sort of walk around, enjoying myself, whatever. But I wanted to welcome you back to my story as well. And a lot of what I told you was that I grew up in Kentucky in a, shall we say, a really small town. I think we had like either 2,000 or maybe 3,000 people. I'm not really sure. But I also mentioned that I always knew from, I don't know, maybe age 10 that I was going to go to New York. Now, frankly, I had no idea where New York was. I didn't even know where it was. I just knew it was where a lot of good things happened and big things happened. And I remember the very first time I crossed the bridge into Manhattan. And I remembered feeling the energy, the power, and just in general, the feeling of being in the center of the universe. And I knew I was going to do something good there. Though I will have to say, there was one problem, and the problem was that I didn't really understand what I was going to do in fashion. I had no idea. And I thought, well, I'll go work in a fashion office. Now, did I know what a fashion office is? Absolutely not. I gave my resume to a whole bunch of different stores, and actually I couldn't even see the guy that day. But he was impressed by the fact that I had been, and we will not talk about it because I am way too old, that I was a beauty queen. So he asked me to come back in for an interview. I went in for an interview. I got to be a fashion office person, and I got to be, a part of, actually it was a lot of getting coffee. A lot of getting coffee for people. There's nothing wrong with getting somebody a cup of coffee, whether it be a woman or a man. And so I did. And then, luckily enough, after working for about 6 months, now I was always a little crafty, I have to be honest. I always wanted to, make the next step, get moving. I was now about 23, 24 years old. And luckily enough, just by accident, there were several of us that were fashion coordinators because it was a very big store. And this was a corporate headquarters of many stores. And so the fashion coordinator was just old and tired, and she said, well, she was going to leave. And so I thought, well, I would, while the others were sitting around moaning and groaning and wondering what they were going to do, I went straight upstairs. I went straight upstairs to the head general merchandising manager who, decided who was going to be the next fashion coordinator. And I told him, well, that I would love to be that. And he said, well, you've only been here 6 months. How would you think you have credibility to be the fashion coordinator? I said, well, look, how about, now I made this deal up on my own. I don't know where it came from, but I made this deal up that, okay, I would take the job and I wouldn't get a raise and I would not be called the fashion coordinator, but I would do all the work. Okay, well, he said, okay, and then if within 6 months you do well, you can become the fashion coordinator. So then I go back downstairs, and the other people, you can imagine, the other people that had been there a long time were like, oh, while we're sitting down here crying, she's up there, making a deal. And I did. And so I became the fashion coordinator at 24, which was a really wonderful step forward. I, went from that, and then, as I said, there were failures and there were successes, and that was my first success. And so I went forward from there, and then I was offered a very big job as a national fashion coordinator for another company. It was their largest costume jewelry company in the world at the time, and I wasn't offered the top job. I was just offered a minor position there. But then what did I do? I sat and waited. I waited for the right time, the right place, and then she left. And when she did, I jumped for it. Now, did they give me the director's position? No. But I became the fashion coordinator. From there, I started speaking on behalf of the company as a spokesperson. Well, now, these were all things that just kind of, I was probably at the right place at the right time. And I know it isn't easy today. I think the big difference is, there's social media and everybody is doing everything. And God bless them, I commend them. And I like to do the same thing. But in that case, I had to really work hard, as we all do at social media as well, and content creating. So I forged along in this job, did pretty well. And at the same time, I was also looking at what other opportunities might happen. But then again, things sometimes go sour. This was a huge corporation and it was going under. And guess what? I got laid off. But I didn't let any grass grow under my feet. I went looking for something else. What was I going to do? Okay, so I started working for Corning Glass, and they had a sunglass line, so I started representing them. And then I represented Audemars Piguet, Omega Watch Corporation, lots of different things, which gave me an opening as a spokesperson. And then I started into television, and I became a lifestyle and fashion and lifestyle beauty expert. Now, that was a great way that I got into the television business, as many people get in under very different circumstances. And I got to work with the top 10 markets in the country and many talk shows all over the country. And it was an extremely, extremely exciting time in my life. And I enjoyed it, loved it. And then I was up for a television show. But then I meet none other than my second husband-to-be and the love of my life. He passed away a little over a year ago, but I had a wonderful amount of years with him. And I have to say that he showed me the top of the stratosphere, the top of the heap of New York City and many other places in the world. We went all over the world to emerging markets throughout the world. And so I got to see so many different things. And I lived at the Plaza. I lived at the St. Regis. I lived like Eloise. I lived at the Plaza. And it was wonderful. And it started a whole new chapter. And remember when I told you, and always remember this as life's journeys go along, whether they be big or small, is that there was a time in my life when I thought it was over. I thought when I lost my first husband, I thought, well, or he divorced me, let's say that. I thought it was all over. I thought, I'm done. Well, guess what? I was anything but done. It was starting the next chapter in Manhattan that was a whole different chapter. From there, we also bought a place here in Palm Beach, which was a lot of years ago. So never think you're down for the count unless you are already seeing Jesus. But whatever or whoever it is you pray to, you may have a whole other adventure ahead. And so I'll tell you more about that adventure as we go along. And I hope you enjoy, being in my home with me. And I certainly enjoy being with you. Have a great afternoon.